Next will be review and consideration for approval of the process for rolling out the educator effectiveness system. That sounds like something from Mrs. Zardi.
It is. And I don't necessarily need approval on this tonight because you may want to have some additional time to look through the documents and review. But as you know, during the 2014-15 school year, full implementation of the educator effectiveness model needs to occur. We have participated in pilots this year with the principal effectiveness program, as well as getting training on the teacher side of things. And what we really need to do next year is start preparing people for full implementation, and in talking about it with the individuals who have participated in the pilot programs and the training. We really think that our best bet will be to walk them through step by step what will be happening every month next year during the school year, so that they have an understanding the following year. In September, this is what I'm involved in for educator effectiveness, and in October and November, this is what I'm doing. So that's really the plan. We don't feel it's going to be effective to do a big in-service for all 250 teachers and sit down for 3 hours and walk them through this, but rather at the building level, every month having a faculty meeting, a staff meeting that focuses on this and talks them again through what they'll be doing. This summer, all of the administrators are going to West Salem, all of the principals, for the Leadership Academy, and the focus there is on the educator effectiveness model. We'll be working with a consultant from the Danielson Group to look at the framework for teaching, the kinds of skills that they will need, I'll need as we do observation. And I think real critical is the session that'll focus on calibrating observations, so that all of the administrative team, how they're assessing teachers is similar. So that when they go into we may have 2 or 3 administrators go into a classroom, all rate what's happening, and then come back, sit down, and talk about what were your ratings, were you consistent, so that teachers don't have to worry about, well, this principal rates everyone pretty easily. It's easy to get in a distinguished rating compared to another administrator. So that calibration is very important. And it's really important, especially since eventually, although probably not the first year, teacher performance is going to be how students perform will be worked into their evaluation. We have to be looking at data on student performance. So what we're recommending is that again, we walk our teachers through the process. The teachers will be studying the self-assessment tool. One of the things I should point out is that the current process that we have for evaluation has a lot of similarities to what the Danielson model is. When you look at the framework, the 4 domains of Danielson are the 4 domains that we've really been focused on. It's about preparation and planning, classroom instruction, classroom environment or management, and then professionalism. And that's already laid out in the evaluation forms that we have. So those are terms that our teachers are familiar with. We've also, over the last, I think, at least probably 8 years, had teachers be involved in self-reflection. They've created the GREAT plans, or the PEPs, their professional evaluation plans, where they set goals for themselves. And that's a lot of what is part of the educator effectiveness model as well. Teachers will start out by doing a self-analysis, a self-reflection on the skills that they currently have and where they need to improve. They set their goals based on that, and then they really start collecting documentation and artifacts that demonstrate that they're meeting the goals that they chose, that they felt they needed to work on. So the big change that I am recommending for next year is that we don't expect our teachers or our principals to be involved in GRATE and PEP plans next year. But we give them the reflective tool and we ask them to be analyzing where they fit into all of the different domains and the categories that fall under those domains. So they'll be involved in reflection, they just won't be using what we've used in the past. The other recommendation that we're making is that we make some modifications to the evaluation form that we currently have used. Typically, we have used the short form for the observations when we have new staff or staff that we've had concerns with. The principals go in and they use the short form that's attached there, and they are taking notes about what they're observing in the classroom, and then they're rating the teachers on whether they're proficient, they need improvement, or unsatisfactory. And one of the big differences with the Charlotte Danielson model is that you withhold judgment until closer to the end of the year, because people need that time to demonstrate that they have developed the competencies. So I'm recommending that when you look at that short form, you'll see that we've crossed out the actual ratings, that when the principals are going in and they're observing our teachers, they're making comments, but until the summative evaluation is given to teachers, they withhold their judgment and they don't mark whether or not the teacher was proficient or needs improvement or is unsatisfactory. And it's in the summative evaluation where that is specifically rated, and then that summative form is what's really used for purposes of renewal or non-renewal.
I don't see this rating that you're...
If you look at, I skipped to, if you look at this short form that I just put up there, John, I've crossed out the performance scale. It's the third, if you just kind of scroll down, it's the third.
Yeah, I had the wrong form.
Okay, document there. So we're just recommending we use the same criteria, but we're just not giving them, we're not judging them immediately. And we would also be taking off this section then about an improvement plan, because we would, again, we need to wait to give them the opportunity of the majority of the year. We're really looking at probably March being the time when a teacher would be told, okay, you're going to need an improvement plan for the following year. You're going to, there are enough concerns that you've been rated unsatisfactory or needs improvement. And again, without rating them in those observations that they do prior to the summative, they can still be noting if there are issues or concerns and the things that the staff members need to be working on. The other thing that we're recommending is that we really just use the Lanang form, and that's a separate form that is embedded for you. But one of the things that we've been working on the last few years is this concept of Lanang, and having our teachers writing their lesson plans tied to that, and then doing drop-in evaluations, mini walkthroughs, where you really go in for up to 10 minutes and you get a snapshot and you give teachers feedback in regard to what's happening in the classroom. And the Lanang form that I embedded, we created 2 years ago, and our building principals have been using this and giving teachers feedback. But this is about quality instruction every day. And those 5 components there, the idea that a learning target is determined and it's put up on the board for students, so when they come into the classroom they understand or they know what they're going to be learning that day. The idea that you're assessing or accessing their prior knowledge, that they're given an opportunity to share with one another things that they already know about a topic. Then there's new information that's delivered, then students get to practice and apply that new information, and then before they leave the classroom, students are actually sharing back what they learned that day and what the purpose of the activity was to reinforce their learning. This is quality instruction. This wasn't always happening in every classroom, and getting teachers to follow those steps every day in their classroom is real critical. And it doesn't seem that difficult. It's not that difficult, and we need to make sure that we are monitoring that and making sure that it's happening every day for students. So this form, we would expect every teacher to have at least 3 informal LNAG observations so that they will be getting feedback. But really for our veteran staff, we wouldn't worry about a summative or a short form evaluation. We would really just be using this for teachers that have been solid performers for us in the past. And of course, at any time, if an administrator felt that they had concerns about what was happening in a classroom, they can use the old forms that we have available to get in additionally and be observing what's happening in the classroom.
So we would still be, for next year, we would still remain on the same schedule of those 2-year teachers?
For our new staff, our probationary teachers, right, we will be observing them frequently and using the forms that we have. But for our veteran staff, we would just really be using the LNAG. And then we also, again, would not be requiring the grade plan or the PEPs because they'll be doing that reflection through the educator effectiveness model. Then I also embedded for you a lot of information about the process, the educator effectiveness process, and I think you can take some time to review that. I think DPI has done a great job of laying out for us as administrators how to be engaging our staff in this and how to help them understand how the process is going to change. And then I also gave you this big fat document. What's valuable about this is when you look through it, you'll find that each of the domains and specifically the attributes that are under the domains, there's descriptors given. So it's really a rubric, a description of what it looks like if a teacher is unsatisfactory, if they're at a basic level, if they're proficient, or if they're distinguished. And so teachers, again, are going to be looking at themselves and reading these descriptions and saying, am I proficient in this area? Do I display high standards of honesty, integrity, confidentiality, and interactions with colleagues and students? They'll read those descriptors and really kind of assess themselves in terms of what they need to work on and how they can improve. And one of the things that's emphasized greatly in this whole process is that DPI isn't going to be using the terms distinguished and proficient. Trying to remember what the terms are that they're using. But teachers need to understand that you don't live in this distinguished area. It might be a place that you visit occasionally, but it's literally, when you look at all the expectations that we have for our professional staff, if we can get everybody to be proficient, we're going to have a dynamic group of educators working with our students. And then obviously with continuous improvement, there'll be times when they're moving over to that distinguished area, but there's a lot that's involved in becoming a quality classroom teacher. And many of our staff members, I think, do already meet the proficient area. I don't think there's any question about that. But this lays out better than anything I've ever seen a description of what the expectations are to be an individual or a teacher who really is proficient at instructing kids in the classroom. So that's it in a nutshell. I'll give you some time to look it over, and then maybe we can address next month. Again, as Mr. Goiter indicated with the budget process, if there are questions that come up, if you would send them to him or myself. The same is true with this. As you're going through this, there are some things that you're worried about or have questions about, let us know, and then we can address that next month before you choose to act on this.
Do our teachers already have this?
Our teachers have some of this. When I went around to building level meetings this year, I took some of the information, but not all of it. So this big fat document, most of our teachers don't have. But that is part of what they'll be getting next year, and that we'll be walking through with them. We're still waiting because we're in the pilot, it's still in a piloting position, we're holding off as long as possible to get a lot of the information to teachers because there are changes DPI is making and improvements in the types of materials that are being used.
A lot of the newer teachers have had the Charlotte Danielson models in college. They've been exposed to it.
Yes.
So there will be a fair number that already understand this model. And so the transfer over to what we're looking at in the near future won't be a big leap for them. Some of the other teachers.
I think the key is, again, we've got time here to start preparing people, and we need to somehow free up energy and time for people to focus on this, and I think the best way that we do that is by eliminating some of the things that we're currently doing so that we can begin focusing on where we're going.
And I think it's good that you're doing a month-by-month process instead of just a brief in-service on it. I think it's going to take a little, as you said, more concentration and time set aside for it. So it's good.
Anything else? Thank you very much.